Welcome to Classical Chats. I'm Tiffany. Today we have Eva Sharman, who is a high schooler. She plays the piano, the violin, and also sings a little, so she's quite multi-talented. I'm excited to have her on as a guest because I know that there are many students among us listeners, and also in my own general online audience pool, there's a lot of young people, and I think it's also very important to have younger people come on to share about their experience as they go through school, because I know I get asked so much about what to do about school, choosing career paths, and deciding what to do with music or whether to even pursue music. How do you decide on any of these things? I know it's a challenging time and also very exciting time, especially in high school, junior year. It's a lot of career choices that you have to make suddenly, right? So that's why I'm excited to talk to Eva and have her share her experience with you. Hi. Hi, Eva. How
Hi,
are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for your time to I guess we can tell our listeners we had a difficulty with some tech, and now we're meeting for the second time. So
Mhm.
yeah. Anyway. Uh how are you? I guess it's almost the end of school year, right? Or
Yeah, it's
no?
almost the end of the school year, so a lot is coming up. I have some exams for school, and I'm preparing for recital on Thursday, so I'm really excited for that.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Good luck. Well,
thank
we'll
you.
definitely get into that. I'm excited to hear what your process is like to prepare for a concert. I did not expect that topic at all, actually. So let's start from the very beginning. How did you start your journey with classical music?
Yeah, so I started taking piano lessons when I was maybe 6 years old, so pretty young. I don't come from a musical family, and I would say the way I learned was a little informal. I had a piano teacher who taught me lots of different types of music. I learned from singing with my sisters. I love to sing musical theater and other things. I also play violin as well. So I started that a bit later. And I still play violin and play in orchestra. I play in some chamber ensembles with piano. And I really like to stay involved with ensembles as well as my solo playing.
But it's amazing. I mean, you covered quite a lot of instruments in just 10 seconds. So
Yeah,
walk me through how you went from singing. That must be so cute. Do you still have videos of that?
I
Like
do
home
have
videos
videos.
of
I used
when
to
you're singing?
do
That must
a
be so cute.
yes, I used to do a children's choir, and I have such good memories
Me
because
too.
yes, I we were in the concerts with this Chicago Symphony Orchestra for the holidays and other little concerts around, and it was just wonderful for me as someone who wasn't really in classical music, but just kind of to get that exposure to look where I am now, playing the piano and doing all these classical concerts. I really credit a lot of that to what I started back
Yeah,
then. A lot of my interest,
it's
yeah,
a fun way to
yeah.
introduce music and get that exposure. So going from that to piano and violin, how did that happen?
Yeah, so I basically played around with a lot of different things before I decided to really focus on piano. I switched to my new teacher in seventh grade for piano, and that was kind of when I started focusing a lot more. So, especially in high school, focusing on piano specifically. But I still really value the other things that I do. So, my teacher always has me sing during my lessons because it helps me with phrasing on the piano. And violin also, by playing violin, I can kind of get a better idea of what singing sound I want to hear because sometimes that's hard to do on the piano, harder than other
Yeah, I mean,
instruments. Yeah, and
yeah, when I was learning, they always say, "Oh, you should play it like the violin. You should have
yes,
it legato like the violin." I'm like, I don't play the violin, but I can imagine it. But you have the advantage of actually knowing how
absolutely.
both
And
works.
in my like pre-college conservatory type group, I have play an orchestra, so I get to play a lot of the major symphonic rep while being mostly a pianist, and that's a wonderful experience for me because I love listening to music too, not just playing it, and a lot of motivation and things I draw from other people, not just my teachers, from other students that I get to work with. I'm always so amazed with pianists who are able to um, like make it so far with their own ideas and work a lot on their own. And it takes a lot of motivation to be a solo musician and to spend hours a day practicing on your own sometimes. And I don't know if I would have gotten so interested. Now I'm able to practice for a long time on my own and stay focused and have that internal drive. When I was younger, I don't know if I would have stayed so interested in music if I didn't have this I don't know, group aspect first. I love playing in chamber music and orchestra.
Oh, that's interesting. So it was the socializing part. I mean, not really socializing in the
Yeah.
sense of chatting necessarily, but yeah, I have also been to rehearsals where you just spend the entire time talking
Yes,
rather
that's
than
true.
rehearsing music.
Yeah.
But you went from the group experience to the solo to really find that drive. Do you
Mhm.
remember if there were certain pieces that um, motivated you? You mentioned that you didn't really commit fully to the piano until seventh grade or something like that. Were there
Yeah,
certain
I remember
experiences that you
learning.
remember?
Yeah, I remember learning Chopin. Actually, the first piece now I remember that I learned with my new teacher was from one of the, I forget which one piece from WC Children's Corner, and just kind of to,
Ah,
start. It's a good
those
introduction
are
to that sort of music,
yeah.
and I
You
have
don't
very
remember which
fond
one?
memories. It was, uh, I feel like there was one with a lot of 16th notes, maybe just to work on technique too. I can't remember which one, but I have fond memories of
I don't know.
working on that. And with my teacher, she's a wonderful teacher. I'm so lucky to get to work with her now. And some of the music now, I'm kind of seeing her strategic planning in what I played so that I'm able to have really good and strong technique, but have my own voice, which I'm still working on always. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think it's a lifelong journey to search for your own
of
voice and
course.
really, yeah, find. I mean, it sounds like a cliche. It probably is a cliche, but now I'm so curious. Which children's corner was it? The
Uh,
Gollywog's Cakewalk?
uh,
Oh, I think that was the first one.
yes, I forget which
Yeah,
one it's called. Yeah.
I is it the Doctor's
Ah,
something? I
yes,
think
yes.
it's
I'm blinking. I can't remember the name, but
Doctor's P something. Pass us. Our editor will find this out and
yeah.
insert it at the appropriate time, please. I forgot. It's like it has the S and an A and a P in the word.
Yeah, and I remember
So
playing some
I play that too.
Chopin as well with the Chopin mazurkas and waltzes and the etudes too. I have dabbled in since then and still working on. Um, yes, and the first I remember playing the Beethoven's second concerto, which I thought was really fun because I never played a concerto before, and getting to play along
Mm.
with my teacher accompanying me when I was first learning that was really fun.
Yeah, I remember those experiences actually. I think my first time playing a concerto was a Mozart concerto in F
Mhm.
major. I even think that is on the internet. That was the first video of me on YouTube, to be honest. Nate, feel free to find it and insert.
Of course.
But I remember the experience of playing with my teacher at the time and having that ensemble, the two piano. Obviously,
Hmm.
it's a reduction from orchestra, but
Yeah.
yeah, I get that goosebump feeling, and I remember that feeling. Even now, I mean, not now necessarily, but even when I got older, when I get to play a concerto with the piano part or with an orchestra, it's just a very goosebumpy feeling. I'll
Yes.
have that
Absolutely.
fully experience when I play with an orchestra after so many years in a month. But anyway, back to you. How did you get into violin?
Yeah. So I had actually at my elementary school we had a little program where we got to like try out some string instruments, and I fell in love with the violin. I believe I took lessons maybe fourth grade. I took lessons on and off. I take lessons still on and off. I have a teacher who's very flexible as I am quite busy these days, so can't really commit to like a full lesson schedule, I guess. But for violin, my process is a lot different because I mean, piano, I'm working on trying to have like the best possible technique and thinking long term, how is this technique going to help me? And then also just working on a lot of rep at one time, of course. But for violin, it's a little more casual, I would say, because I don't really have many concerts I play in. I don't have so much down the road that I'm looking forward to. So it's a little more freeing, actually. I'm still working on technique, but I guess in a little bit different style. I love just to play on my violin sometimes, not even practicing, just sight reading music. It's very fun. Yes.
That for piano a lot, just not for anything, any specific
Mhm.
purpose, but just to sight read. It's always so fun. Do you
Yes.
remember the moment when you decided on the violin? you said you fell in love with the violin, but were
Um,
there certain
I
music
actually
that
don't
you
have.
listened
I
to?
don't have one moment. I actually did not listen to much. I don't have memories of listening to classical music or violin at all when I was younger. Um,
Huh.
I don't know. I honestly don't remember. It feels so long ago.
Yeah, well, that's interesting that you don't remember. Well, I
Mhm.
mean, it's also sometimes things just happen so naturally that you kind of
I
forget
mean,
the
I'm
first
glad they
moment. I
did
forgot
happen
the
that
first
way.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I forgot the first movement with the piano, so I can understand. Um, so something that's interesting about you is also you trying to include more young classical musicians and motivate them, and through your blog.
Yeah. So
Want
I
to walk
have a
me through that
yeah,
project?
I have a blog called Young Classical Musicians, which I will share the link with you. And I want to kind of expand as similar to what Together with Classical is doing, to kind of expand the musical horizons and see how people in our generation and future generations can kind of continue on this tradition. Because, I mean, classical music is a very old tradition, and we're playing music by people often dead for hundreds of years. Um, and just having community for young people to kind of share their ideas with each other and learn from others is really valuable. So on my blog, I'm trying to include some of my personal experiences. Obviously, I'm just a high school musician. I have a lot to learn and a lot that I don't know, but some things that I've learned along the way that I find helpful to me. I'm also trying to interview others and talk to other young musicians to get other opinions and other views. Recently, I talked to a friend who is studying music education, and that was so interesting to me because I don't really know anyone else who's studying music education, and she told me a lot about what that process was like. And I think it's so valuable to have a wide view of other people going into classical music who are similar to your age.
Yeah, definitely, and that's why I invited you onto classical chats because I know that there is a significant portion of the online audience that is younger
Mm-hmm.
and also around your age, and I thought maybe you have something that you can share and kind of inspire each other that way because
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, I'm just this. I mean, I'm just 24. What do I know? Like at every age, I feel like you have that moment of saying like, I'm just this, but it's also a bit more valuable not to say I'm very valuable, but I also think because there are many high schoolers and many students among the audience that it would be helpful to hear from a student.
And
So were
in
there
many
certain things?
Oh, sorry. In many ways, everyone's a student. I was listening to some interviews with Yo-Yo Ma the other day. And I found so
Mm,
interesting how he talks about the cello as if he's regarded as one of the greatest living cellists of all times, but as if he's just learning it for the first time. So interesting.
yeah, I definitely admire the way he is able to talk to all kinds of audiences about his love for cello and yeah, really show to a larger audience what it means to him. So I was gonna ask you about in relation to your blog, but also in general, if there were certain things that you think you have learned that would be helpful to other students, or maybe
Yeah.
just 2 years ago you wish you had known that, and maybe that would be interesting to share with
Yeah. two
all of
years
us.
ago, I think what I wish I would have known is that I think maybe I approached looking at how I play music and what the purpose is a little bit differently.
Mm,
I don't think music is supposed to be competitive. I think, especially from my age right now, I'm a junior in high school. There's so much emphasis on competitions and auditions and everything that's, like a major part of your musical journey sometimes, but maybe shouldn't be the primary part. And learning to perform in front of people is really valuable. Obviously, something we need to know how to do if we're going to be musicians. But I think I wish I had known that um, it's not the most important thing. And I think now, especially with us being in quarantine for a long time and me basically not playing in front of anyone for months, um, I was able to kind of take a step back and take the time to explore how I want to play for myself and really find like myself as an artist instead of what everyone else is telling me to play. So that's probably the first thing I wish I had known. Other than that, I think it's important to remember, kind of stemming off that idea, it's important to remember that um, like comparing yourself to other people is not always the best, because I always hear someone say, "Oh, like you're like they're better than this person or something." But I don't know. I think we all have our own strengths and
Yeah,
uniqueness in our
exactly.
playing. We all can be great at playing an instrument. It doesn't depend on who's better.
Do you remember if there were certain events or experiences that led you to these kinds of
Yeah.
revelations or yeah.
Something really interesting I did last year. So after we were in quarantine and everything shut down, of course, and a lot of musicians were out of work and lost their jobs. It was a very sad time for the arts, and I'm hoping that it's getting better now, at least starting to. But
Yeah.
um, the first like group of people I spent after the first quarantine, I rehearsed with my piano trio, and we didn't have any lessons or any competitions or recordings to prepare for it. We just played for ourselves and spent a large portion of the summer working on music. We played the first movement of the Tchaikovsky piano trio, and then we did some movements
Hmm.
from Shostakovich too. And just getting that
Oh,
experience to, yes, so much fun. But getting that experience obviously
Shostakovich.
was not at
Very
such a
hard.
high level as if we were taking lessons and master classes as normally we do during the year. But
Mhm.
just learning from each other and finding out everything. I have a wonderful cellist and violinist I play with. I learned so much from them, and just really collaborative. And we're all in high school, so it was fun to work together.
Yeah, it sounds fun. Also, since you are trying to build a network and you seems like you already have a network of young
Hmm.
classical musicians, it'd be fun if you could invite them to come onto classical chats. I think that would be very
Yes,
interesting.
absolutely.
If they're willing to, no pressure at all. But I just that came up to mind in the middle of
Yeah.
hearing you talk about this.
Yes.
Yeah, so it really is the playing of the music that really led you to understand and think that it's not about competing against someone
Hmm.
or yeah, that it's not a competition. That's I hope that people will really take this to heart, because I get too many messages and comments about, oh, what if I'm not like this, or what if I'm not good enough, like is it
Hmm.
worth it to do this, and what should I do you think I'm good enough? It's I always get very frustrated and disheartened when I see messages like this, or maybe they think, oh, a certain piece is maybe too difficult for me, so maybe because I can't play this piece that I shouldn't be a musician. So yeah, I just
Absolutely.
wish more people will take this
It's
to heart.
and it's so competitive, like sometimes, especially in this environment, like for orchestra, you're ranked. Basically, you have seating auditions and you're ranked given a number that you sit in, which is not supposed to be competitive, but of course it turns into something competitive. And
Yeah.
those like individual things in time, or like one competition, they don't define you as a musician. They take one sliver from someone else's perspective, who someone another person could have a different perspective and a different view. So it's important to remember, I think.
Yeah. So, of course, competitions and whether they are relevant or not, and whether you're going
Mhm.
to be in an orchestra or not, it of course it depends on what your goals are for your career. So, where do you see music, especially since you're a junior, so
Yeah,
colleges,
coming up around the corner.
conservatories,
Yeah, so I'm
kind of
planning
an
on.
exciting time, but could be stressful depending on where you're at. So, yeah, where do you see music
Yeah,
being in
so
your life
I'm
in the
planning
future?
on auditioning at some colleges, maybe for programs, but not conservatories, because I have a lot of academic interest too that I want to continue. I'm not really sure
Like
yet
what?
what my major is or anything down the road. So still deciding. I think it's okay not to know. I want to have better ideas over the summer of what I'm going to do for college. But the most important thing I heard recently was someone told me that wherever you go, um, you're going to have opportunities, and that the choice you make in the school you go to is not going to define what your career looks like, or like it's not going to change who you are and what you're interested in. So I think that's something I'm kind of taking with me as I go on this journey.
Well, yes, I like that. Although I will say that the fact that I went to college did change a little bit of who I am, in that I never thought I would major in philosophy
Yeah,
until I went to college. So in a way, it did change, but not in a negative sense. It kind of added to who I am. But
yeah,
I definitely also think, having gone
I
to college, that it's not which college you go to, it's what you do there.
absolutely. And studying, I think personally, in this past year, I've become a much better pianist, but I've also become like a much better writer and much more thoughtful, I think. So I think studying different things helps you a lot. Um, I enjoy
Yeah.
studying things as a musician, and I think again, like I've seen people who commit fully and only to one thing, and burnout is real, and not really, I don't know, having a full understanding of everything happens. So personally, I try to branch out and do lots of different things that help me. And philosophy,
Yeah.
I'm sure, must have been very interesting to study in relation to the piano too, because surprisingly, those two things probably are very closely related in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think for my studies, I was just saying earlier today that I have no idea how I ended up with a degree in philosophy, because I've forgotten 99% of the things I've read. But the experience and the skills that I've gotten from those readings of things that have absolutely nothing to do with the piano, like I read things about ethics and about metaphysics. Like I remember writing a paper about what is water, so that has nothing really to do with, well, except for maybe pieces that are related to water, but it doesn't have the direct correlation
Yes.
between the academics and the music, but it's kind of the experience of what you do during that time that shapes your thinking going forward, and also just to know many different things. It's always better to have a more well-rounded view, which brings me to the next topic: your choice of music for us. I
Yes.
am a very ignorant musician, because I feel like I constantly just know about piano stuff, and even the piano repertoire, I don't know every single piece. But I don't know any of the music, or maybe at least four out of the five choices that you have picked for us. So, will you walk us through why you decided to choose these pieces to introduce our audience to other
Yes.
recordings of classical
Absolutely.
music?
So the first thing I chose was an excerpt from Deafness at Chloe by Revell. I think this is the recording with Dutoit and the Montreal Symphony. I love this piece. I think it's a gorgeous example of orchestration. The
Well,
strings kind of
Vallis.
sound
Yes.
like they're
Yeah.
breathing instead of a string instrument. It sounds like people instead of instruments, and animals, and you hear the birds and the trees. Also, there actually are real people singing in this. Voice is used kind of as an instrument in the orchestra, which I find is really interesting.
Mm. Yeah, of course, because it directly relates to all of your musical
Yes,
interest.
I've
Because
never
you also
gotten to
sing.
play. I've never gotten to play Daphnis at Chloe, but I would love to someday. It's gorgeous,
One day.
and I would definitely recommend. The second suite is always played, but I think listening to the full thing is really really cool. I love listening to it all from start to finish. Um, Next one I recommended was, I don't know if this is in the same order here as what I have. Um,
That's
Smetana.
fine.
So Smetana was Czech, and this piece from my homeland. Um, he has two of them. I think I put the slow movement, but Smetana is known for his Czech music in the way that it sounds really characteristic of there. I love this piece because it really showcases the violin's abilities. And I mean, we hear so many times, we hear Paganini and everything on the violin, but this is a little more maybe relaxed, not so intense at sometimes. And I think it just reminds me of like wandering through like a meadow, like listening to violin. It's just a nice, and again, violins have such a gorgeous singing sound. Um, I love this piece because it shows that really well. And Smetana also lived, he had a very interesting life. He had many of his children die, and his wife die as well. So he went through these periods of sadness,
Wow.
obviously, and it's really reflected in a lot of his music. The
That's
piano trio as well.
interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say, when you were saying how the violin really has such a beautiful singing tone. I always make this joke, but it's really not a joke. I am a very sensitive person, so the joke is that if I played the violin, I would like never stop crying just because it had um oh, it's just piercing in my heart when I hear certain really emotional passages of a violin. And then you mentioned that, all of these unfortunate events of the composer, and of course it makes sense that he would write
It's,
these
yes.
beautiful pieces for the violin.
Hmm.
Oh, I am
Gorgeous
kind of trying
instruments.
to
So.
prepare myself to I mean, they're gorgeous, but also, oh, so
Yes.
painful sometimes.
Next, I
Anyway,
have for cello, actually. This one's for cello and piano. I did the Popper Spanish dance. I think this piece is really fun because it's spontaneous and it's got lots of twists and turns. Cello is one of my favorite instruments, actually. I know I don't play the cello. I know many great cellists, and I think it's so cool. Um, I really just enjoyed this piece. I recommend you listen to it.
I don't know this piece actually.
Yeah, it's fun. And then next, I have by a female composer, Cécile Chaminade. She is well known for a piece she wrote for flute, but a lot of her solo piano works are wonderful and maybe a different style than we often see on the concert stage. They remind me of kind of salon music that you'd hear in the
Hmm.
corner of someone's living room a bit. Um, the one I picked is called Sous la Masque. Sorry if my French pronunciation is wrong. I'm actually playing this on my recital that I have on Thursday. It's
Mm.
very light, and my teacher tells me to think of like some ladies walking around in their big dresses.
And the
Um,
umbrellas.
yes, and the umbrellas. Chaminade, I think it was beginning of 20th century, sometime around there. She would
Hmm.
compose this, maybe a little later. So
That
I've really
reminds
been enjoying her music.
Yeah,
What's
I
that?
will definitely listen. I haven't listened to that
Yeah.
piece, but that reminded me to ask you and thank you for your music suggestions. What's it like for you to prepare for a recital?
Oh yes. Okay. So um, I guess
I've
it's
never
kind of
asked a
different
student
because
about this actually.
yeah. So it depends, I think, on how much music I'm preparing and what the context is. So the recital preparing now, isn't really a recital in front of people. I'm recording it for. There's a Chicago like radio station, and they do little segments on musicians and young musicians. So I have, I believe, around 40 minutes of music and then some interviews. So it's a sizable chunk of music to do. Um, the way I prepare is first I like to, doing a larger recital like this. Sometimes I like to draw from different music I've learned in the past. So I'm playing Prokofiev's Third Sonata, sorry, which I learned a few years ago. But at this point, it's like I haven't learned it at all. It was so long ago. But
Oh,
bringing
you
back
learned it before me.
some things that are more familiar a little bit. Um,
Mm.
my process, I try to, first learn what I'm playing, learn the notes. I don't like being bogged down by technique right before recital, so hopefully get my technique to a place I'm really happy with it, and then try to explore and make artistic choices. Um, I also, I mean, my teacher always tells me not to be set on one artistic choice. Like if I want to do a crescendo here, to have that as an idea, but then have other ideas that I could use as well if I feel like I want to change something, because sometimes the performance calls for it. I can hear
Hmm.
birds in the background. um,
That's nice. That's much better than the droning that is going on in the background. There's a plane or something.
and then, yeah, and now I've been trying to play as I prepare, just to play for some friends and other people if I'm able to, just to have a chance to run through some pieces so I'm not playing everything cold. But yeah,
Hmm.
I really enjoy preparing, and I think having a end goal is a good thing because of course they can work on this music forever. I'm playing the Mendelssohn Variations series in this recital, which I'll probably play for college auditions as well. So it's a good point in the journey, but I could work on one piece forever probably and still find things I want to change. So
Yeah. Oh, thank you for bringing me back the memory lane. I learned the Prokofiev Sonata around your age, so you actually learned it before I did. and I remember certain experiences. Yeah, it's a fun piece. And then you
Fun.
mentioned the Mendelssohn Variation series, and I remember learning that actually much older. I
Mhm.
think I was 20 when I learned that piece, and
Yeah.
I don't even know why I picked it.
Prokofiev
Anyway,
is
beautiful choices of music. I'm excited for you.
Prokofiev is a little outside of my comfort zone, maybe. So, but it's really
Mine
good
too.
for me to work on different
But it's
music. And yeah,
yeah, but it's probably the most digestible sonata of his, in
absolutely.
my opinion. I think
Yes,
all the others, it's just a bit overwhelming for me to
Mhm.
understand.
I
So
agree.
glad I'm not the only one who feels that way about Prokofiev. I mean, I feel like I've only played three pieces by him: his toccata, the
Oh, of course.
sonata, and the concerto number three. That's it. I
Oh,
think
it's
that's
fun concerto. I haven't played
the.
it, but yeah,
It's also in A minor, right? I
I
think.
cannot remember.
No, some. I, I don't know why. No one cares except myself. But I was impressed to see the correlation. You went from A minor to D minor, and
Yes.
the nerd that I am, I like to program things with some sort of relationship between the keys of the pieces.
Yeah, I'm
So
really
that came to
excited for my
me.
programming. I'm also doing, so I'm starting off my recital with Rachmaninoff transcription of the Bach violin partita, which is kind of cool because I played that on violin as
Oh,
well. And then I'm
I
gonna do
don't know that one. Have you played
what?
the violin piece? Have you played it
Yes, I have
on the
played
violin?
it. So it's kind of fun because I have
Hmm.
this different, actually learned it on piano first, learned it on violin. Now I'm coming back to playing it on piano. So I have a whole new
Oh,
way of looking at it,
wow.
which is really fun. And
That
then
sounds so fun.
playing
I'm very
another,
envious of you.
yeah, playing another Bach Prelude and Fugue from the first book in E major. So they flow nicely together. And the
How
Chopin
long?
actually that I put on this playlist is very similar to
Hmm.
Prokofiev in some ways, which is really interesting. Some
Hmm.
a little reminiscent, but it's much lighter.
I
Yeah.
hope I can hear some. Do you have videos of yourself playing certain of these pieces, or it'd be
Well,
nice
I'm
to
taking videos on
insert?
Thursday, so I will hopefully get those back soon. And I have, I learned Rachmaninoff Concerto, the second one, the first movement. I have a recording of that I did recently. Other than that, actually, I have Mendelssohn recording, but this one will be better, so I can maybe send some.
Yeah, it'd be nice if you can give me a little bit that we can
Yes,
share.
that would be
That'll
awesome.
be nice. Yeah. I guess another question about the process is how long do you start before a
Yeah,
recital to prepare
so
for?
I started preparing for this recital. I'll just give an asterisk on this because I learned some of the music before. I started preparing in, oh my gosh, my dog's sorry, in February. So in February or late January. So it's been a few months, but as I said before, started music a little bit before. I'm not great at learning stuff last minute. I like to really know it well before I perform. Obviously, that's not always
Hmm.
possible, but
I mean, it's always different
yeah.
for everyone what their process is like. But I was just curious because I only know my process, but I've actually never asked
Mhm.
a high schooler or any student actually about what
Yes.
I mean. Not like my age, but yeah.
And
Thank
of
you for
course,
sharing.
my schedule changes a bit because I'm in school too and have
Right.
depends on the time of year how much time I can have to practice.
How do
Um,
you manage that? I get asked so much by students about how to juggle school with music, and especially when you're trying to prepare for a recital. How do you deal
yeah.
with that?
So um, this year, I think it's been a little bit more flexible because we were on remote school for a lot of the time. But I
Mm.
do take a lot of classes and do have maybe 3 or 4 hours of studying and homework to do a night. So I try to take advantage of the time that I do have. If I have free periods in school, I'll use those. I don't want to say time management because, of course, it always is trying to manage your time well. I'm not great at planning things out ahead of time, trying to get better. But also, I think it's important to realize like there are only so many hours in a day. Don't stay up till 2 a.m. doing work just because you feel like you need to check off the hours of practicing. Like, make sure you save time for yourself. Something I've been trying to get better at is instead of like putting a time on how much I want to practice that day, figuring out like what I want to practice and what I want to accomplish in when I'm practicing. Um, Other thing is sometimes I find like I'm just very tired. It's totally okay to take a day,
Yeah.
not practice, or maybe save some assignments for the next day. And I think there's this pressure to, I have to do this much every day, but not healthy sometimes.
Yeah, oh, it's great that you have figured all of these things out. I think I learned maybe a little bit later, or maybe I learned more of this in college when I really had to juggle between
Mhm.
writing and reading philosophy, which is not exactly short a lot of the times,
Mhm.
and then also taking classes and practicing. So I get asked a lot, like, how many hours do you practice a day? How do you manage it? And I don't really focus so much on the timing. Maybe I would try to aim for around 2 hours, or maybe that's just kind of the average
Mhm.
outcome. I don't know what it is for you.
Yeah, that's my
Do you know?
around 2 hours right now with
Yeah,
school. In the summer,
I think,
sometimes a little more.
yeah. But it definitely is very smart of you to think that it's not about the time to check off. I think that's,
Absolutely. Sometimes I get
I think
much
there's
more done.
way too much emphasis.
Sometimes I get much more done in 20 minutes than I do in hours. So
Exactly.
yes.
Exactly. And also it depends on what you're doing. Like, I could train for an etude. I remember back in college I was practicing some Chopin etudes, and I
Mhm.
would play an hour just and then get exhausted after an hour, but it's an etude. Of course you're going to get exhausted if you're running at full speed for an hour. So, yeah, it definitely is a lot more important about what you practice rather than how long you practice. I wish more people would think like you, Ava.
I've tried to change my mindset a little bit to get there. So
Yeah, no, it sounds like you're on a great track, so thank you for sharing about your journey. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something from Ava. I'm really impressed by all the things that she has said. I feel like I learned those things a little bit later, maybe not when I was a junior. I was quite oblivious about many, many things. So I'm very impressed that she has come to these conclusions and these perspectives. I think they're very helpful as you pursue school and go into college, and also as you go into the rest of your adulthood, which I am still very much learning my way through. Anyway, I hope you will also check out our other Classical Chats episode, whether on YouTube or on your favorite podcast listening platform. In the meantime, I look forward to the next conversation.